An 18-year-old boy goes out on the water with his friends to celebrate the 4th of July. By nightfall, he isn't home. By the next morning, his mother is calling 911. 2 days later, a park ranger finds a body in the water off a remote barrier island. What happened in between those hours, on a sandbar surrounded by boats, laughter, and alcohol, is still, weeks later, one of the most disputed timelines in America. This is the story of Nolan Wells and the case of Horn Island. If you're new here, this is exactly the kind of case we cover. Real investigations, told carefully and factually. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss where this story goes next. Horn Island sits about 10 miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast, part of the Gulf Islands National Seashore. It's federal land, accessible only by boat, known for its untouched beaches, its sandbars, and its reputation as an unofficial summer party spot for boaters from Ocean Springs, Pascagoula, and the surrounding coast. On July 4, 2026, a group of young people made the trip out to Horn Island, the way thousands of others do every summer. Boats anchored near a sandbar, coolers on board, music playing. Among them was Nolan Wells, 18 years old, a wide receiver for Southwest Mississippi Community College. By the time the sun went down, Nolan was not on any of the boats headed back to the mainland. 2 days later, his body was recovered from the water near the island. In the weeks since, his death has drawn national attention, not just because of the mystery of what happened on that sandbar, but because of the questions his family, their attorney, and civil rights leaders say still haven't been answered. Who was Nolan Wells? Nolan Wells was, by every account made public so far, a young man just starting to build his adult life. He played football at Southwest Mississippi Community College, where he was a wide receiver, and friends have described him as easygoing and well-liked. He grew up on the Mississippi coast, in a community where boat trips to the barrier islands are practically a rite of passage every summer. His mother, Christine Wansley, and his father, Elmore Wansley, have spoken publicly since his death, describing a young man loved by his family and his friend group. At a public gathering following his death, his mother said he would not want us to be sitting around crying, and that the family instead planned a celebration of his life alongside the funeral services. Friends who knew him have echoed similar sentiments in interviews with national outlets, describing him as someone who got along with the group he was with that day, many of whom he had known since high school. The trip to Horn Island here is what has been confirmed. In order, about July 4th, 2026. Nolan left from a private dock in the Ocean Springs area on a boat with a group of friends, heading for Horn Island, a trip Sheriff John Ledbetter of the Jackson County Sheriff's Office later confirmed to reporters. Photos and video from that day, since reviewed by multiple news organizations, show several boats anchored near a sandbar, with a mixed group of young adults wading in shallow water and drinking through the afternoon. According to the sheriff, witnesses told investigators Nolan was last seen alive on the island sometime between roughly 3 and 4 p.m. Investigators say he told friends he wanted to stay behind, reportedly to talk to a woman he'd met that day, and planned to catch a ride back with a different boat later on. The boat carrying his original group of friends left the island that evening without him. According to Sheriff Ledbetter, they left and went back without Nolan. From what we understand, he chose to stay there. That is the official account, as told by investigators, based on witness statements. It's important to note, Nolan's family has publicly pushed back on parts of this account, saying it doesn't match what they know about their son, and questioning why he would have chosen to stay behind on a remote island with no clear way to get home if his ride never came. The moment everything changed, when Nolan didn't come home that night, his mother grew worried. According to local reporting, she filed a missing persons report around midnight after one of his friends had already placed a 911 call. That call, and the confusion around it, would become one of the central pieces of the investigation. By the early morning hours of July 5th, Nolan Wells was officially a missing person, last confirmed on a remote federal island, without his phone, and without a clear account of how he intended to get back to shore. The search what followed was a large, multi-agency search effort. Confirmed participants included the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, another area sheriff's office, a Mississippi state agency, the U.S. Coast Guard, the National Park Service, since Horn Island falls under its jurisdiction, and a volunteer search and rescue group called the United Cajun Navy, which has assisted in numerous missing persons cases along the Gulf Coast. Crews searched the water and the island itself by boat and on foot over the following 2 days. The United Cajun Navy later told reporters they were factoring in wind and current patterns around the island to narrow the search area, given how quickly conditions on Horn Island can shift. The discovery of Nolan Wells. On the morning of July 6th, at approximately 8:45 a.m., a body was found in the water off the northwest end of Horn Island. According to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, it was a National Park Service ranger who discovered the body and called it in. The following day, Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lynn Jr. confirmed that DNA testing and dental records matched Nolan Wells. His mother confirmed his identity publicly on social media that same day. The search was called off once the body was recovered. We want to pause here and acknowledge this is the hardest part of any story like this to tell. Nolan was a real person, and his family learned this news in real time, in public. We're including only what has been officially confirmed, out of respect for them, the autopsy and investigation. This is where the case becomes genuinely uncertain, and where we have to be very careful to separate confirmed fact from open question. Sheriff Ledbetter told ABC News shortly after the body was found that investigators did not, at that point, suspect foul play. There is no information that we have right now that would lead us to believe that a crime has occurred. That statement reflected where the investigation stood in its earliest days, and investigators have described drowning as a suspected cause, though not an officially confirmed one. Nolan's official autopsy was conducted by the Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office. As of the most recent public reporting, the results of that official autopsy have not been released. Meanwhile, the family, through civil rights attorney Ben Crump, commissioned an independent autopsy. According to reporting from Locks, the results of that independent autopsy, announced on July 22nd, ruled Nolan's cause and manner of death as undetermined pending investigation. That is not a finding of foul play. It is also not a finding of accidental drowning. It is, officially, undetermined, meaning the medical examiners involved say they do not yet have enough information to rule definitively. So here is where things stand, as plainly as we can put it. Authorities have suspected drowning since early in the investigation, but no official cause of death has been publicly confirmed, and the family's independent examination has not ruled it in or out either. This case remains open. Before we go further, if you're finding this breakdown helpful, this is a good moment to hit like and share this video. It genuinely helps get accurate reporting on cases like this in front of more people, instead of the rumors that tend to spread faster than the facts. The unanswered questions investigators and journalists covering this case have pointed to several specific gaps that, as of this recording, remain unresolved. Why did Nolan not have his cell phone with him when he was last seen? Investigators have said this remains unexplained. What exactly happened between roughly 3 p.m., when he was last seen, and the time his friend's boat departed the island that evening? Witness accounts of this window have reportedly varied. Was there an altercation on the island that day involving Nolan? Videos filmed near the island on July 4th, and later circulated on social media, appear to capture someone shouting, as if in a heated exchange. Attorney Ben Crump has pointed to one video in which a voice can be heard saying, in effect, to give back a phone, and the family's legal team believes that voice belongs to Nolan. Multiple news organizations, including Mississippi Today, have reviewed that footage. Sheriff Ledbetter has publicly asked the public to stop spreading unverified claims about what the video shows, and investigators have not confirmed that any altercation involved Nolan or that it is connected to his death. Why did the friends who arrived with Nolan leave the island without him? The official explanation, relayed by the sheriff, is that Nolan chose to stay behind to wait for another boat. That account has not been independently verified beyond witness statements, and Nolan's family has said it doesn't match what they know of their son. These are open questions, not accusations. As of now, no one has been named a suspect, and no charges have been filed in connection with Nolan's death. The theories. Because of how much remains unknown, theories have spread widely on social media, far more widely at times than confirmed facts. We want to be direct about this. Several of these theories are unproven, and some have been specifically discouraged by investigators as unverified. The leading, officially suspected explanation remains accidental drowning, consistent with authorities' early public statements, though not yet confirmed by an official autopsy. Separately, some online commentary has speculated about foul play, pointing to the alleged altercation video and to the fact that Nolan's group of friends was largely a different racial makeup than Nolan himself. His death has, in the words of CNN's own coverage, fueled speculation, grief, and racial tension along the Mississippi coast. We are including that only because it has been reported by major news organizations as part of the public reaction to this case, not because any racial motive has been confirmed by investigators. No official finding to date has established a motive or a crime of any kind. We are intentionally not repeating unverified names, rumors, or claims that have circulated on social media and have not been confirmed by law enforcement or credible journalism. Sheriff Ledbetter has specifically asked the public to stop spreading unverified information while the investigation continues, and we think that's a reasonable request to honor here. The family's search for answers. From the earliest days of this case, Nolan's family has been vocal about wanting more transparency. They retained civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who said publicly that the family deserves answers and deserves the truth. Crump's legal team has said they're conducting their own independent review of the case, citing what they've described as contradictions in the initial accounts given to the family and a lack of information from investigators. They commissioned the independent autopsy discussed earlier, and they've pushed for the release of records, witness statements, and the findings of the official autopsy. The family has also received public support. Civil rights leader Reverend Al Sharpton has appeared alongside them at press conferences, and his organization pledged funding toward information that helps investigators. Other public figures have stepped in to help with expenses tied to the case and Nolan's funeral, according to the family's legal team. Through it all, the family's message has stayed consistent. They aren't asking the public to accept a theory. They're asking authorities to finish the investigation and share what they find. Where the investigation stands today. As of the most recent public updates, the Jackson County Sheriff's Office says the investigation remains active and ongoing. Sheriff Ledbetter has said his department has conducted numerous witness interviews and has been working with other agencies, including the FBI. The FBI's role, according to the sheriff, is tied to the fact that Horn Island is federal land and to helping examine digital evidence gathered so far, something Ledbetter has described as not unusual for a case like this. Separately, the FBI has confirmed it is looking into threats made against individuals connected to the case, after some people involved said publicly they'd received threats. No arrests have been made. No one has been officially named a suspect. The official autopsy results have not been publicly released, and the independent autopsy has returned an undetermined finding. Investigators have said they do not currently have information indicating a crime occurred, but they have also not closed the case, and they continue to ask the public for tips, photos, and video from July 4th. If this case gets a break in the coming weeks, we'll be covering it. So if you want to see that update the moment it happens, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. At the center of every detail in this story, the timelines, the video clips, the theories, is a fact that's easy to lose sight of. Nolan Wells was 18 years old. He played football. He had a group of friends he'd known most of his life. He had a mother who reported him missing at midnight because something felt wrong, and a family that has spent every week since fighting for information that, so far, hasn't come. We may not know for weeks, or months, exactly what happened on that sandbar after 4 p.m. on July 4th. What we do know is that a young man is gone, and the people who loved him are still waiting for the autopsy, for the records, for someone in a position of authority to tell them, clearly, what happened to their son. So we'll ask you the same question. Investigators are still trying to answer. What do you think happened to Nolan Wells on Horn Island? And what questions do you think investigators still need to answer? Let us know in the comments. Respectfully, and without naming or accusing anyone who hasn't been named by investigators themselves. We'll be keeping an eye on this case as it develops. If you want to go deeper on cases like this, we've got other investigations on the channel worth watching. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you're the first to know when this story, or the next one, gets an update. As always, thank you for watching.